My name is Ashley Westerland, and I'm going to be presenting information that I gathered from an article from ASCD's website titled Assessment and Student Success in a Differentiated Classroom. The ideas that Carol N. Tomlinson, Tanya Moon, and Marcia Imbo, authors of this article, are very similar to the ideas and the attitudes of both Ubben and Marzano. This article really highlights the qualities of effective classroom practice in the areas of curriculum assessment and instructional planning, with particular attention given to the relationship between formative assessments and differentiated instructional planning. I wanted to point out here in the first slide that I have linked the actual article. If you click on that link, it takes you right to the article. This article has a lot more information in it that I'm able to highlight in this short presentation. The learning targets for this presentation is that by the end, you'll be able to understand the interdependence of curriculum, assessment, and instruction, know the difference between pre-assessment, formative assessment, and summative assessment, understand the purpose of each of the three types of assessment, give examples of how teachers can use formative assessments to differentiate instruction. At the end of this presentation, I'll actually have a quick check for you to be able to kind of see where you are in relation to these targets. The article highlights key classroom elements, which are the learning environment, classroom management, curriculum, assessment, and instruction. And while the article does point out the interdependence and that all of these are equally important to one another, it really focuses on curriculum, assessment, and instruction. This connection asks teachers to reflect on and respond proactively to three questions. What do my students need to learn in order to be successful in a given segment of learning? Or in other words, where do my students need to be? Curriculum answers that question for us. Assessment, the next question, given what they should know, understand, and be able to do, what do my students know, understand, and are able to do proficiently? So in other words, where are they in the instruction and in meeting those curriculum goals? And last question, what can I do to maximize the growth of each learner and what they need to know, understand, and be able to do for success? Or in other words, what am I going to do to move them forward? This article really highlights curriculum, assessment, and instruction and the way that they are interconnected. I like to use the analogy of a tripod to explain the interconnectedness of all of these three elements, curriculum, assessment, and instruction. Just as a tripod has three equal legs to get a good clear picture on the camera, if I were to, or you were to shorten one of the legs, my camera may fall or the picture would not be as balanced, let's say. And just in that way, curriculum, assessment, and instruction really are equally important also. So if I were to lack on the curriculum goals and not having, for example, clear articulated goals, both on the teacher's part and the students, then I wouldn't really know what to assess. And if I'm not sure what to assess, I'm not able to guide my instruction. And I could give a lot of examples on how all three of these are connected in lots and lots of sorts of ways. But I thought the analogy of a tripod helped describe that. So here's our first quick check already in the presentation. So I used a tripod as an analogy to explain the interconnectedness of curriculum, assessment, and instruction. My question for you is, what other analogy could you use to describe the interdependence of curriculum, assessment, and instruction? Take a moment to think about that and perhaps pause the video. What kinds of assessments help support student success? There are different types of assessments. First, pre-assessment, which happens before instruction. This may be, for example, having a whole class discussion, kind of understanding what the students already know, what they want to know, and what they're interested in learning. Formative assessment happens during instruction and happens frequently during instruction to provide feedback to both the students and the teachers as to let them know where they are in meeting the goals of the curriculum. Formative assessment is typically not graded but does provide feedback for the students and the teacher. Summative assessment happens after instruction or different pieces of learning, and that is to let students know and teachers know whether or not they had met those goals. Assessment is really a service of student learning. The actual purpose of assessments is to impact student learning. All three types of assessments should be used for that. Pre-informative assessments are assessments for learning and as learning. They help teachers plan for more focused instruction, help students focus on key learning targets, reflect on their own work, and reinforce a growth mindset because they see evidence that their hard work is paying off. And in that way, pre-informative assessments can be seen as learning. Summative assessments is an assessment of learning. How well has the students mastered KUDs, or in other words, as the author explains, what the students know, what they understand, and what they're able to do with that information. Let's do another quick check. Let's see if we can see what examples go and match with which type of assessment. So we have over on the right 3 different examples. Number 1, a teacher gives an exam given at the end of the unit. Next, a teacher facilitates a whole class discussion in order to complete a KWL on a particular topic. And last, asking students to answer a question on the board and placing their answer on a sticky note to be put on the front board as they leave class. Let's see where these match up. So pre-assessment, that would be asking the class to complete a KWL. Summative assessment is typically given at the end of a unit. And formative assessment is just getting a real quick check on where the students were. And so that would be an example of having students answer a question on the board and placing their answer on a sticky note and putting it up on that front board as they leave class. Take a moment and reflect, how did you do on this? How do teachers plan instruction based on assessment information? The article highlights the importance of thinking broadly in terms of not only the whole class, small group, and individual students. So for example, we want to get a snapshot of the whole class with formative assessments. We want to be able to also get snapshots of small collective groups of students and also in the individual needs of our students. After determining what the needs are of the whole class, small group, and individuals, teachers can then more effectively differentiate tasks to target students' varied needs. And so in that way, they're able to really look at that snapshot, determine what the needs are, and differentiate instruction depending, again, on whether or not the students are close to the goals, maybe they're at the goals, maybe they've already exceeded them, or they're nowhere near being on track to reaching the goals. The article, my favorite part of the article is where it provides examples of differentiated instruction depending on where the students are. For example, you can either scaffold the information or extend the information or learning. In some of my classes, when I used to be a teacher, I taught middle school and I had 6 hours a day, and usually there was about 1 or 2 classes just collectively as a whole that really learned very quickly, and I was able to extend the learning. And then there were some that I really, as a whole class, needed to scaffold and add more supports and more information and a lot of different things in order for them to reach the goals. Figure 3.1 on page 12 in the article gives a lot of different examples and strategies for both scaffolding and extending student work. Rather than going through and reading all of these to you, I just wanted to point that out. And again, on my post for this class, I will have a link to the article so you can go back and reference this. In summary, there's a very strong link between curriculum assessment and instruction. And as we've participated in the reading, both of Marzano's work and Ubin and the other authors, I think that that link has been highlighted in those readings as well. This article also highlights that curriculum goals must be clearly articulated for not only the students, but for the teachers as well, so that formative assessment results can guide teachers in order to differentiate learning environment to meet the needs of all students. And instruction should be guided by both the curriculum and assessment. And again, They all three, curriculum, assessment, and instruction, are interrelated and need to be equally focused upon. This is the part in the presentation where I'll ask that you can click on this target here and take a quick formative self-assessment to see where you are with things. I do this, or I have done this in my classroom, just as a quick check for me, but it's also a quick check for my students in class. It gives me a good snapshot of where my students are as a whole. So for example, do you understand the interdependence of curriculum, assessment, and instruction? You may say, absolutely not. I need to go back and do some reading there in the article. Or you may press 2 here to say, I think so. You may even go to 3 and say, bullseye, I'm right on target, and I can give plenty of different analogies related to that interdependence in addition to the tripod analogy. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Again, this article is very good. It gives practical strategies to enhance your instruction based upon formative assessments. And I will also put this PowerPoint up on the page as well.